government
I
controlled
said, where
one.
am I? And they said, we can't tell you. And I said, why can't you tell me where I am? And they said, we're not supposed to tell anybody.
Looks like the police have formed a cordon to keep people from taking pictures.
We're taking things that are, genetically modified organisms, and we're injecting them in little kids' arms. We just shoot them right into the vein.
I've basically just been waiting to get the vaccine so that I can feel safe going out.
Things like that, which kind of suits my personality. I like it that way. Yeah.
And that's fair.
Good evening, everyone. This is Last Week Today. It's a compilation of the best stories of the week from Freedom Forum News, the What's Up Canada website, and the Ethics Over Fear Task Group. Now, Wayne Peters is my co-host. Wayne, what's happening?
Following, the gust of stench of the day, or the carrion of the day, the rotting corpses of the day. Every day there's a different aroma in the air. While we're living the adventures of 2022. So it's a different flavor for a different day. This week, it's an awful lot of following geopolitics and financial shockwaves, and looking at things that people might not necessarily be seeing or expecting, with attentions diverted in a bazillion different directions.
You are just no fun whatsoever. We should be following the important narrative has come down to us from the World Economic Forum. I mean, Russia's bad this week.
Hey, it takes the weight off of our back from being bad last week, right? Once the dust starts to settle from the initial volley of insanity, people are much quicker to start figuring out the shenanigans, or some of the shenanigans at least, that are afoot with this whole World War III narrative that they're trying to escalate to. Too many people have seen Wag the Dog and watched the first Iraq War unfold. So there's a lot of red flags that are looking to be like they're being recycled through all of this, and it's really triggered a different kind of conversation. And honestly, I think this is kind of a step down from the level of passionate conversation that we've been overwhelmed with. The battle for our medical freedom is a very intimate and difficult discussion around the kitchen table. But let's face it, talking about war in the Ukraine between Russia being the bad guy, all of a sudden kitchen table talk is starting to come to life again on a completely different wavelength and subject. So I think some people are kind of taking this as a reprieve to step away from the dreaded COVID narrative, which is by no means over. But this is kind of providing a bit of comedic or entertainment alternative in the barrage of propaganda.
I do agree. There's a lot of really, really good stories if you dig into the Ukraine narrative a little bit, and there's a lot of interesting stuff that we can figure out that goes to a better understanding of the world.
Well, and it's people are starting to put two and two together. If the shell shot is landing over there, why are the repercussions being felt over there? Something doesn't add up, right? Like it's two and two just are not adding up to four, and they continue with this attempt to convince us to not believe our lying eyes and to listen to what they're selling instead, and it's not working as effectively.
I tend to agree, and that reminds us of our first story tonight, which is all about the imminent collapse of our current economic system as we know it. Now, according to the March 15th, 2022 Wall Street Journal post, Saudi Arabia considers accepting yuan instead of dollars for Chinese oil sales. The talks with China over yuan-priced oil contracts. Yuan is the Chinese currency. It's not the American petrodollar, but they have been on and off for 6 years, but have accelerated this year as the Saudis have grown increasingly unhappy with decades-old U.S. security commitments to defend the kingdom. Now, the Saudis are angry over the U.S.'s lack of support for their intervention in the Yemen civil war, which is one of those wars we're not supposed to talk about this week, and also over the Joe Biden administration's attempt to strike a deal with Iran over its nuclear program. Now, the Saudis don't like Iran. And Saudi officials have said they are shocked by the precipitous U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan last year. They also don't like that. Now, China buys more than 25% of the oil that Saudi Arabia exports. And as noted in the Post, it would be a profound shift for Saudi Arabia to price even some of its roughly 6.2 million barrels a day of crude exports in anything other than dollars. Now, the majority of global sales, about 80%, are done in dollars, and the Saudis have traded oil exclusively in dollars since 1974. Now, this is a deal with the Nixon administration that included security guarantees for the kingdom. Now, it's also noteworthy that another major international trading partner, a little more subtle this time, but India, is also in discussions with China to explore alternative payment methodologies to soften the blow of Western sanctions imposed on Russia after its invasion of the Ukraine. Now, this is from the February 25th, 2022 Zero Hedge Post, India exploring rupee payment mechanism for trade with Russia. The article says India is putting its own national interests first over concerns that vital aspects of its fertilizer exports from Russia could be disrupted as sanctions intensify, and it would threaten India's vast farming sector. Now, Wayne, China, India, and Russia are members of the BRICS trading partnership with a history of intentionally bypassing international bankers. Does the need to use US dollars to buy oil, is that international economic system about to go the way of the dodo?
What we are seeing here is the dominance of the American petrodollar about to absolutely come apart at the seams. People that have been paying attention to these economic battles for a number of years now will recognize and remember the fury of Canada selling off all of its gold reserves, and the discussions about China and Russia making moves to gold-backed currencies. These discussions weren't new discussions, but the one thing that had kind of kept those discussions simply as discussions was the power of the petrodollar, the dependence on the American currency that had become the primary trading dollar internationally for a long time. And that foundation in trust in the American petrodollar to make the world's economy go round is what we are seeing coming apart here. Just like many of us talk about breakaway societies, alternative communities, this is what's happening to the rest of the world now when they say no, we'll decide to use what we're going to use to buy and sell with and trade with for our countries. You don't own our dollars, so we're seeing this massive push basically forced upon these guys by the greed and arrogance and the hubris of our Western democracies, trying to use our dollar as an extortion tool over them, forcing them to play our way. If you want our dollar and our support, you play by our rules. Well, they've gone so far with their rulemaking that these countries are choosing which side of the, not just history, because this is history in the making, but the shift of the currency is going to be moving towards a gold-backed currency in the ruble and the yen. And these countries, these major powers, are basically saying that no, we don't care what America thinks. what the Western financial institutions think. We're going to use whatever it takes, our money, to keep our people fed and warm and clothed and moving. And it's really hard to ignore them and to pretend like they're not doing the right thing for their people when they look at the price of gasoline in Russia is 48 cents a liter, and in Canada it's plus $2 plus a liter. Who's actually doing the right thing for their countries or their people? When you take away energy from the people, you're basically committing suicide as an economics player for your own people. And this is basically what these sanctions and this wag the dog war is spelling out for people, and why on a national level we're not going to see investment back in business in Canada, because what are we going to give them? Monopoly money based on nothing when the rest of the world is trading goods and assets? It's all about value-based systems. And the world is telling the American bankers and the Canadian bankers, anybody that is taking part in this new expansion into the digital controlled currency as a foundation for their nations, that they won't be able to control them by it. This is going to leave the only people in control under these situations is the people that depend on them from a day-to-day perspective.
I tend to agree. I also note that not all of the Russian economy is subject to sanctions. Only 75% of the economy is subject to sanctions, and most of what's left out of the sanctions are energy exports to Europe. So even Europe is bailing.
This is what makes everything so ludicrous in their political stances between America and Canada and all of these pro-Ukraine countries. They're really nothing more than chihuahuas barking at the Russian bear dog at this point, because they have nothing to take away from from Russia that doesn't hurt them worse. That's the problem, right? So Russia has a surplus. They have an economy now that is going back to their own currency-based trade. The world that is nearest to them is saying, "Yeah, okay, we'll do business with you because it's easier to do business with you in Russia than it is with Sleepy Joe Cottontail in America." So that trend is not going to change. And it's absolutely empowering Russia to carry on with this. So what has America got left to try to peacefully take away from them? And at this point, it's going the other way now, where if I'm not mistaken, I heard that Russia actually shut off some of the pipelines going into the West today. But on the other side of the coin, he's got sales on for anybody that wants to buy oil and gas from Russia right now. It's 30% off if you're buying in gold and silver.
I agree with everything you say. I am, however, very thankful that there are military industrial complex companies we can funnel what's left of our money into, because that leads us to our second story for tonight. It's about those evil Russians bolstering their northern defenses after Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau went to Europe and dissed the Russian leader, Vladimir Putin. And it's all about giving more money to our defense establishment. Now, as noted in the March 10th, 2022 National Post story, Russia is back in its Cold War era Arctic bases, Canada's defense chief warns. Now, Canada's defense chief, General Wayne Eyre, says that it is not inconceivable that our sovereignty may be challenged in the future by Russia in the north. And that's pretty conditional. But the only solution seems to be more defense spending, according to Eyre, since protecting the country's Arctic region is a key priority for our armed forces. He also warned that Russia has reoccupied abandoned Cold War bases in the far north. He said this speaking at a defense conference in Ottawa last week. Eyre also said defending NATO's northern flank is a key area of concern for the Canadian military. Now, he also said it was important to imbue in military personnel the principle of selfless service ahead of personal beliefs. Now, the general also said he was aware that there was a polarization in society, as shown by the recent protests in Ottawa. You know, the ones the Emergency Act was invoked for. And Ear was also worried by some of the ideology circulating in the military, and Ear was worried that some veterans adhered to it. Now, the neat thing is that this isn't a standalone article on the need to bolster our defense efforts with increased funding. There's lots more. There's the March 16th, 2022 National Post follow-up. Canada's defense minister to set aggressive military spending options, which is just in time for the budget coming down in April. I think we didn't even get around to counting the last two, but it's almost time for a new one, which may not be counted either. And that article notes that several European countries, including Germany, Poland, and Denmark, have increased military spending in response to the Ukraine crisis, and Canada should too. So, Wayne, what's all this crap about the concept of selfless service being forgotten in the military? Is this something we should increase funding for in the next federal budget?
Look out, boys and girls. There's massive amounts of printed Monopoly money coming for more gender fluidity training in our Canadian Armed Forces, folks. It's stepping right up. We're going to build us a bunch of the most colorful, united, diverse soldiers, and we will neuter them first, and then we'll put them in the Arctic Circle where all of the Chinese soldiers that we've just trained can defend their assets behind us, all their gold mines that they own, and pretend and look like the Russians across the North Pole are just arriving. They've just been there, when folks that have been following for a couple of years will have heard us articulating 2 years ago where Russia was upgrading all of their northern establishments and bringing everything they had in the Arctic Circle up to the most evolved technological developments that they had. They were upgrading everything in the Arctic Circle. But maybe Colonel or General Erie is listening to us now and has finally realized, when I started asking 3 weeks ago, did Trudeau forget that Russia was our neighbor before you go sounding off like you're some kind of grand poobah king turd of Turd Island? Like, it was just absolutely ludicrous what he's pretending to be and trying to drag us into, when it's pretty much common knowledge by the rest of the world that our military as a fighting force, I hate to say it, guys, but the reality is we are a non-military force. Our Navy, if you want to sink our Navy, it's easy. Put it in the water. If you want to take out our Air Force, go ahead, put it in the sky. It'll fall out for you. This is absolutely ludicrous.
One thing I really like about the Canadian Armed Forces is their procurement policy. They can procure for years and years and decades. They can announce brand new contracts for helicopters and fighter planes and ground forces and ships. Right. And they can spend huge amounts of money, and no planes ever show up. Nothing shows up.
They can pump out armored personnel, assault vehicles running over civilians for Venezuela and for the Middle East to run over those Yemeni. Oh no, sorry, we're not supposed to talk about that. We can be the second biggest small arms exporter in the world, but we can't maintain our own military.
Somebody told me a story about the Canadian military once, and I think it was Can Polly. This is one of the other morning news programs I sometimes watch, and they were talking about how the Canadian military is short ammunitions and is short sleeping bags and short food.
It was, I don't know, 30 some years ago when I was taking my training, and we were short all of those things then already. I did my pistol training with 1911 pistols because they just didn't have any bullets for the new ones that were coming.
With respect, those were heavy. Those built up my upper body strength.
like, oh, it's drama.
Yeah, but
It
but
is.
but seriously, we haven't even counted our budget for the last 2 years. We're like 600 billion unaccounted for, and now putting all this new money into military procurement, and the suggestion by our military defense chief that we're going to procure in new ways that will hide the money forever. I don't think he said the last part or she said the last part, uh, but the idea is that we'll never find this money. It bodes badly for the next budget. There's no accountability.
Our government is miraculous at losing pallet loads of money. In it's look, let's be a little bit realistic here. In the last 3 weeks, our government has announced and shipped more money to supply the Ukraine military than they have our own Canadian military. This should be a serious problem when they bring this guy in to speak to our parliament, who is actively using real life legitimate Nazi battalions with the Azov battalion. We are funding Nazis in Ukraine, supplying them with bullets, telling Russian bear dog that they are bad guy, and we're supposed to buy that these guys have any real cognitive sense of what our military needs or what state of chaos Canada is in. At this point, I have more luck talking to Americans that are looking at the buffer zone between Russia and Canada and going, "Oh
Yeah, I agree. It's a really bizarro. Somebody in the comments wants to know what the solution is.
no!"
Ah,
A brilliant question. Unfortunately, most Canadians, and I do mean most, even the 80% of the 100% that think they're awake, are not ready for the real and practical solutions, the reality of what solutions are out there and what needs to be done. This could very simply be done if we could collectively get our poop in a group. And this is the sad part about it, is Canadians have had more time than Moses to get their poop in a group since 1931, literally, to do what is right. The first part of it is and people need to think back just a couple of little red flags. When Canada signed into the UN SDA and the Migration Compact that tied us into all of these policies that we've been experiencing in the last 5 years, which countries did not sign on to that? Which countries did not sign away their sovereignty into future contractual obligations that would merge their countries into the World Economic Forum? What did those countries say to not be compelled to all of these state nation altering changes? All they had to say was no. That's all they had to do, was say no. Under the UN Charter of Human Rights, Articles 2 and Article 7, that's all they had to do, was say no. And that's all our government, we would have to do, is as a government say no, we want out of these UN binding obligations, and then we go to seat a de jure government. That is the actual solution. People aren't ready for that discussion because the waters have been so blurred and muddied by a fast, easy button guys taking shortcuts, those kinds of things. The discussion has turned into a toxic soup that nobody wants to actually have anymore. But we need to look at countries and nations that have done this. Iceland got out. What they did after they got out was equally stupid, but they actually figured out how to get out, and it legitimately revolves around seating constitutional de jure governments through constitutional conventions done the right way. Everybody can use the words, but they don't understand how to actually make that happen out there. And this is the problem that we're up against, is there's so many conflicting arguments and discussions. Everybody's got a solution. If you help us out and you just sign our petition, our Constitution, this is all it takes to change. That was not a Freudian slip. That was a mockery. Um, but so, the solutions are out there. One of the other things that we cannot openly discuss is one of the catch points that was put into our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and has been a catch point on that. This is why the government ignores it. It was because of the language clause that was installed in there. The only way we could actually ratify our Charter of Rights and Freedoms was if the French signed away their language. And Trudeau knew this. This was the catch point. So we could do some simple things like reevaluate some of those things that were almost almost done, but oops, they got the stick in it at the last second. So there are a lot of options and solutions, but Canadians don't seem to be able to facilitate or find the opportunity to have those discussions collectively, and our governments will absolutely not allow that.
I,
So
I would tend to agree. I think the politicians are wacky than they need to be, and that brings us to our last story for tonight. I note the impending and perhaps even expedited retirement of Ontario provincial MPP Randy Hillier, who, as outlined in the March 15th, 2022 Freedom Forum post, people are trying to scrub an outgoing Ontario MPP from the internet. Hillier has vowed to remain active in public affairs after retirement, despite calls for his arrest, originating in the legacy media, CBC to be precise, and despite his recent banning from Twitter. Now, Hillier made the retirement announcement only 1 week after the federal government-funded Canadian Broadcasting Corporation publicized calls for his arrest. Now, Wayne, if even a long-term sitting MPP, Hillier has been in there for 12 years, I think. If he can't retire without CBC publicizing calls for his arrest, what hope is there for the rest of us who disagree with the legacy media?
So, and here, this is dog whistles. This is cancel culture, because the CBC should full well know that there are no legal repercussions to anything a politician does in office. That was been long established in 1992. So this is absolute nonsense. This is cancel culture. Randy, like him or not, regardless, he has been one of the few within the halls of so-called power that has had the guts to have to force conversations, as whether he used the right means or not. He was using tactics that he felt compelled and desperate to do, because nobody was having an opportunity to cause discussion. So to me, it's not less about the person himself, but the absolute control and canceling of anything. If they can cancel a member of parliament and make him fear for his life and demand arrest for speaking out against the establishment, this is a dangerous, dangerous flag that we need to address. That party policy towing the line is absolutely a foreign agenda, and it's not going to remedy anything. People need to start thinking about what kind of a future they want 5 years from now, when they've seen what's slipped away in the last 5 years at the hands of what these guys are doing, and really starts to make some take this time, this kind of lull in the grand scheme of things at the moment, to realize that even though the mandates and whatnot have been lifting, this is a time that you really need to seriously regroup, folks. Using this time to get more connected with your family and your local circles. As the bottom falls out of the petrodollar, the inflation rate is going to absolutely skyrocket. Start developing alternative value systems, exchange, barter systems, those kinds of things. Make the best of what you got with what you got right now, folks, because it might be pretty scarce or worthless pretty quickly. And these guys, one of my tougher acceptances lately is that we can't stop it, but we can choose how we rebuild it.
I would tend to agree. There's a lot of choices. There are a lot of options that we will be presented with over the next 6 months, over the next year. I think we get 4 months off in the summer, kind of like summer vacation, before we have to go back and worry about the latest outbreak of COVID, or nuclear war, or alien beings landing on Parliament Hill, or whatever the next crisis is that our new overlords are planning for us to get us to follow along on the right path.
This has been a controlled demolition of our financial and our economic system and our society. This is what they need to do in order to build back better the vision that they see. This is going to be our opportunity to look back and say, okay, you know what? This is probably a good thing. This old castle is way too old for us to live in and function in anymore. But thank you for demolishing this old castle for us, Mr. Globalist. Now we will get to the justice and reconciliation phase before we can get to the healing phase, and then we'll build it back better or correctly. Let's build it back correctly.
I like that idea. I want distributed environments, and we all have some control over where we send our kids to school, and we all get to talk to doctors about health, and yeah.
These breakaway societies, communities, institutions, it's happening whether they like it or not. It's happening outside of their system. The only food that they have left, they're down to eating themselves on that side of the alternative reality that they choose to live in. Us folks that actually eat real food, and breathe real air, are tending to create those things. The world is changing around them, and they can preach all they want to us from inside of their little metaverse glasses. We're not listening so much anymore, and we're seeing a complete shift in what people recognize as reality. And this is part of the process.
I don't think the New World Order is going to squish us like bugs, as
No.
noted in one of the comments. But I do think it's going to be a challenge. We are going to learn a great many new skills. We are going to be tested, and we are going to be found able to deal with the future, and we will move forward.
And we're evolving every step of the way. Every time we fall down in this rebirth of society, in this great awakening, we get better and stronger, and we get more creative, and new universes are growing, and it's all part and parcel of being a part of that brave new frontier we call the future, right?
I agree, and I'm. I hate this. We got to talk for hours, but that's all for tonight, except for some quick announcements on projects Wayne is working on. You have a bunch of grumpy old men on the weekend.
Yeah, this is something that really excites me, and this goes back to that creativity thing that I was just talking about. Guys, this Facebook world, this YouTube world where they control and dictate everything you can see and do, is over, and we've been working on developing alternative methodologies where we could actually grow and scale on, where we could speak freely and do truthful things. It's no point in doing interviews and shows with the most amazing people on earth if it's only going to last 30 seconds and get removed. So we've been developing alternatives, and we've been piloting some projects as we're developing and evolving all of this. And this coming Saturday, day after tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern, find us on one of our platforms. We're going to be live streaming uncensored, unfiltered, unapologetically, with such an immense cross-section of grumpy old guys with about 400 years of frustration and life experience, from all different facets, walks of life, media, and mediums, from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to Prince Rupert, British Columbia. It's going to be something that's unique and different, and language warning is going out now. This is unfiltered, uncensored, unscripted, and the only point of it is we're going to see which triggers conservative, grumpy old men, and let them rant for a couple of hours. So it's going to be no promises on what you're going to get, but it will be fun and exciting and interesting from all four corners of North America.
And as for tonight, Ed Jemisuk directed the program, and Angela Argentina compiled the intro and extra pieces. Now, to produce this show, we depend upon you, our loyal viewership, to contribute funding as you are able. Send it to me via electronic transfers at mr.chuck.black@gmail.com. And Wayne, where do they go to send you money?
whatsupcanada.org. That's kind of become our grand hub. Everything is going to be moving out of there as far as for the news and developments. We've got a ton of amazing shows coming up. Dr. Ariana Love out of Finland. John from Russia, he's riding around in northern Crimea in a tank right now, taking up the journalist job that I was offered and decided to stay here and avoid going out there. But some really good stuff coming up on whatsupcanada.org. Donate at whatsupcanada.org to help us keep the lights on and keep doing what we're doing. And as always, ethicsoverfear.com is a work in progress. Lots of amazing stuff going up there. New stuff all the time, guys. We've got a page on there that is pretty unique called the Covianism Timeline. And in there, you'll find a compilation of some of the most amazing, the best evidentiary documents, PDFs, videos, all of the stuff that is being removed and censored from every other media platform. You'll find it in one place on that COVID timeline over there. So help us out to keep that ball rolling as well. You can do that over there at support@ethicsoverfear.com. E-transfer is the fastest, best, most secure way to help us all out, because even crypto isn't safe anymore, apparently, in Canada. So that's the fastest way to help us all out.
To finish up, if you like what we do, remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the program. Pass it along to your friends. And good night, everyone. Ed, if you could run the end credits. Yeah.
Would you mind explaining how you helped them and what it is that you did for my colleagues and friends? Escape Chinata.